Welcome everyone today. Hi, my name is Julia Silla. I'm with Qatar Foundation International. We're really happy to be hosting this webinar today with one of our partner organizations, NaTakallam. Really thrilled to be able to share with all of you from home just a little bit about what NaTakallam does and how we hope this can be a potential help to you all in your classes as you're teaching virtually now in this difficult time. So very briefly, our session today is titled Incorporating NaTakallam Sessions into Virtual Language Classrooms. And so we're really fortunate today to be able to hear from several conversation partners. And I'd like to first welcome Hannah from NaTakallam, who's going to introduce a bit about NaTakallam and the conversation partners that we have with us today joining us. So Hannah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, hola, bonjour, hello. We're so excited to welcome you to this webinar today in partnership with QFI, Qatar Foundation International, and NaTakallam about integrating NaTakallam language sessions into virtual classrooms. My name is Hannah, and I'm the Director of University and K-12 Partnerships at NaTakallam. Over the next hour on this webinar, you will learn how NaTakallam's programs bring refugee voices, cultural exchange, and language learning opportunities into classrooms worldwide. Whether you've participated in NaTakallam programs previously, which I know some of you on the webinar definitely have, or this is your first time engaging with us, which I know is the case for some of you too, and that's also great. Either way, we hope you'll walk away from today with a clearer understanding of our program options, along with some ideas for how to get your schools and students involved. For a little bit of background about NaTakallam, for those who don't know us as well, we were founded as a social venture in 2015 in order to provide much needed income to refugees and displaced persons. At first, this was primarily focused on refugees and displaced people from Syria and Iraq, creating opportunities for them to work as conversation partners, or CPs, in Arabic, conversation sessions that they led virtually. And then over the years, we've expanded. We now still offer Arabic sessions in both MSA and a wide range of dialects from across the region. We've added additional languages, French and Spanish, which we'll talk a bit about on today's call, as well as Persian, both Dari and Farsi dialects. We have translation services that we offer to companies and foundations and nonprofits who are looking to translate documents or transcribe and subtitle films. And most important for today's webinar, we have built out programming specific for K-12 schools and universities that bring language learning and cultural exchange to students in an authentic and engaging way that also enhances their coursework and their ongoing learning. To date, NaTakallam has provided over $750,000 US in disbursements to refugees through their work with NaTakallam. And for many of them, depending on their location and status, they don't have access to local employment and economies. And so this, for some, is their only access to employment. And fees from each session go directly to the conversation partner, or CP. Two quick notes about language, not language that we'll be talking about the rest of the time, but about some vocabulary that you might hear us using over and over. One is CP, which is our abbreviation for conversation partner, which you're going to meet 4 of our conversation partners shortly, and it's very long to say the whole thing. So when we say CP, that means conversation partner. And the second is K-12 schools, which I know we probably have a lot of US-based people on the call, but if you are not based in the US, please apologize for our over-Americanness. K-12 refers to kindergarten through 12th grade. So in a lot of other countries, that's primary and secondary schools. We work with all the grades in that range, as well as universities. So if we're saying K-12 schools, please don't think that that means we only work with the US. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce my colleagues who will be our panelists for today's webinars. All 4 of them work with NaTakallam as CPs conversation partners, leading virtual sessions for language learners and cultural exchange seekers in schools, universities, and independent learners who sign up on their own. For today, again, we'll be mostly focusing on the school and university work, but we'll also try to touch on some of our other programs. And if you have a specific interest in another piece of NaTakallam's work, please try to ask questions via the Q&A, and we'll do our best to get them answered. But first, I'm going to invite each of our CPs to introduce themselves, including letting us know where they're from, where they live now, what language they teach with NaTakallam, how long they've been working with NaTakallam, and something that they like to do for fun. And we're going to go in alphabetical order and start with Ursula.
Hello everyone, my name is Ursula from Syria. I hold a Bachelor in Economy and Electronic Marketing. I left Syria in the end of 2013, and because it was too difficult to find job in Lebanon, and I love teaching, I started to work with NaTakallam as Arabic teacher in since 2015. Now I live in Milan, Italy. I like reading, movies, and walking, but now I cannot do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ursula. And let's go to Beni.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beni Batiri. I am from Burundi. Burundi is a small country in Africa, but now I live in Uganda. Uganda is another country in Africa, East Africa. And I teach French in Uganda. I've been here for 12 years. For now, I'm with NaTakallam, but I'm still new and I'm teaching French for now with NaTakallam. Outside of my work, I like playing music. I like watching movies, comedy movies, I mean. Thank you.
Thank you. And across the ocean to Pavel.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Pavel. I'm actually from Venezuela. I'm 28 years old, and I am now living in Argentina in a city called La Plata. I've been working with NaTakallam for about 2 years now, and I teach Spanish. You can tell from the accent. What I like to do besides working, because I'm a workaholic, I like to read a good book. I like to watch a good horror movie, or maybe play some video games. I would say that I like going out, but as someone already said, that's kind of impossible. But happy to be here.
Thank you. And back across the ocean to Varti.
Hello. I'm Varti. I have been working with NaTakallam for 4 years in 2016. I'm originally from Syria, and I live now in Yerevan, Armenia, because my grandparents were from Western Armenia. Plus, what do I like to do for fun? I like a lot of historical things, so I like to travel and see archaeological sites. Nice to meet you.
Great. Thank you all. And we'll be hearing a lot more from all of them shortly. And again, I mentioned before, but I'll make another mention. The Q&A function is there for anyone watching. If you have questions that you want to ask, feel free to put them in there, and Julia is going to help bring them to us, so we'll be able to answer as many questions as possible. We're going to do a little bit of overview about some programs that we offer, and then we'll use the rest of the time remaining to answer your questions. So for a little bit of program overview, even before COVID-19 closed down schools and made it difficult for us to leave our homes, all of our sessions took place virtually because, as you just heard, our conversation partners are located all over the world. Still, like everyone else, we've had to make some adjustments for how we run our sessions, especially for schools that are no longer meeting in person. So we're going to talk about 3 different ways to use NaTakallam sessions with school and university students, regardless of what type of remote learning you're doing. And also, all of our sessions can be designed to support your students' language learning, no matter their level. We'll talk about beginners, intermediate, advanced. We don't use any one specific curriculum. We are happy to work with teachers and professors to align the sessions that your students do with CPs to the textbook or the syllabus that you already have them working on. And you can do any number of sessions. You can do it just as a one-off special event, or you can do a series of 10 or more. For language learning purposes, we do recommend at least 4 sessions in a semester, just because it takes some time. And as language instructors all know, the best way to learn a language is to practice. We're not going to talk as much on this call about, but I will say we also do offer sessions in English that are focused on cultural exchange and have similar conversations to what we're going to have today, but focusing on the experience of what it means to be a refugee or a displaced person. So those are also an option. So we're going to talk about synchronous group sessions, synchronous one-on-one sessions, and asynchronous sessions. And if you don't know what those words mean, don't worry, we're going to explain. So first, synchronous group sessions. For school, synchronous means what we're doing right now, we're all connecting at the same time, in sync. So for schools that are transitioning to virtual learning models with synchronous video conferencing, if you're doing something like this already with your students, you can build in NaTakallam sessions with your students all connecting in from their home. It can happen on Zoom or Google or WebEx or whatever platform you're already using. So Pavel, I know you've been doing a few of these sessions with some Spanish classes. I'd love if you could tell us a bit about your experience, how you prepare for the sessions, how you establish the level of students' language proficiency, and also what kind of relationships you build with the students doing group sessions like this.
Well, sure. The first thing that I do when it comes down to these sessions is I first email the teacher itself so that we can have a conversation very face-to-face or online face-to-face, let's say it that way. And that way we can set a time where we are actually going to start the class itself. But it also allows me to see what the teacher has been giving the students, what this teacher wants to teach them, and how I can help her with the curriculum or pensum she's working with. When it comes down to the actual experience of the classes, they vary, but all of them has been very, let's say, emotional or very good, because sometimes we just have a simple practice of language with what the teacher has been given them, and other times I have a conversation with them. The relationship that builds is one of not only a teacher, but also a friend. So they start getting involved with what I do, who I am, stuff like that. When it comes down to how things have changed, I have seen that a lot of students feel more comfortable now because they don't have to like be outside the comfort zone. It's just a simple normal practice of a conversation using whatever level they feel comfortable. As to how I evaluate how they have their level, I basically start with a simple conversation and I hear them. I see how they use the connections. I see how they use the pronouns, and then I, based on that and what the teacher is looking for, I would develop a simple conversation or themes that they would find interesting and that would allow the teacher to also explain what she wants, while also the student having a lot of fun and not feeling it's a drag.
Great, thank you. We can talk more about those in a little bit, but we'll move on to talking about synchronous one-to-one sessions. So as opposed to connecting with the whole class of students in a big group like this, we can also offer one-to-one sessions. And for highly motivated language learners, this is a really great way for them to continue and enrich their language learning at home. Again, as you all know, as language teachers, practicing is the most important thing to do to learn a language. These sessions can be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes. They can be flexible. For beginner students, if it's too much to ask them to sustain a 30-minute conversation in French or Arabic or Spanish, it could be half in the target language and then half in English, where they're just doing cultural exchange and learning more about their conversation partner. So it can really be catered to the individual language level, and again, to whatever you're teaching in class. We do a lot of these with university students and working with university professors. And now this month, due to the changes of the way schooling is working, we're offering them for high school students, secondary school students for the first time. Although Ursula has actually been working with individual learners, not through our school program, but with a lot of young students, our youngest students who sign up individually or whose parents sign them up, Ursula becomes their CP. So I'd love if you, Ursula, if you could tell us a bit more about your experience working with Arabic students, especially younger students, in one-to-one sessions, and what have been some of your most successful strategies in getting students to engage in conversation virtually?
Okay, so as I told you, I was a teacher in middle school. So, but to do a session online and one by one, it's different. So I should to prepare a little bit of materials. And usually I start my session with a question about, I ask my students to tell me about their life, like tell me about yourself, about your family, what you would like to do. And from these answers or from this conversation, I can understand the level of my students, and I can know or have idea about what I can work on with them. Sure, the work with kids, it's very different. I work with many young students. The youngest one is 4 years old. So it's very difficult, not easy to keep the kids focused with you for even for 30 minutes. So I should to use some videos, photos, some games. We play together. I try to make the sessions more funny for them. And then maybe also with Zoom, I can use whiteboard. We can draw together. Together we can write together. And in this case, they will be excited and they want to learn more and more Arabic. So also because almost of my kids, they are from Arabic families. So I think it's very important to know more about our culture. So I try to find something like songs, music, or also talking about food, about reading, to make them more interested about the session. Like for example, we talk about food. I tell them about, for example, how we can prepare ice cream, buza. It's something like some subjects which make the session more interesting for the kids, or some videos game or something like this to keep them focused with me more time. Also, I have some sessions with Key 12. They have also more, they would like to learn more about Middle East, about our culture. I try to beginning like, do you know where is Syria? And I use Google Map to show where is Syria and where I live now, for example, in Italy. And they have a lot of questions about the culture in Middle East, about Syria, Lebanon, and also the different life now in Italy for me. They ask me sometimes about my story or my personal life. I like my job with the kids and also with the adults. I have a lot of them. Also, I have university students. They try to practice their conversation because speaking is more difficult for them. They can learn writing and reading in their classes, but because there are many students, they don't have time to speak with to speak in Arabic, so they need someone to practice their language with him. So they have this chance with NaTakallam, and with me we try to. They have also a lot of questions. I try to answer their questions, and I try to help them to focus on, like, maybe they want to focus on writing, reading, or something like this. Also, I have normal person who they would like to learn Arabic for their job, or because they live in Arabic country. They would like to learn more dialect, maybe, or more about our culture, our life. So I should to prepare different things as my students and as their goals, and I manage my sessions as they needs. So this in general, all my job. In the end, I want to say I'm very happy to be with you today. I love my job with NaTakallam. I love teaching, and I love to share my culture, our culture, Arabic culture, with the others. And also, I'm happy because NaTakallam give me this chance to build relative friends with another people everywhere. Some of them visited me in Lebanon. I met some of them in Milan also. So it's very, very nice experience. In the end, thanks of all. And if you have any question, I'm here.
Thank you, Asara.
Thank you.
And I want to, we'll keep talking a little bit more about one-to-one, because as Asala said, I mean, even for the most motivated students and the best language teachers, when you're in a class with 15 or 20 or more students, there's just only so much time that you have that you're able to speak in class. And so one-to-one sessions can be a really great way to enhance that. And sometimes even their students' reading and writing proficiency might be much higher than their speaking because they're not given enough opportunity to speak. And Beni, you and I were speaking a bit about this. You have a lot of experience teaching one-to-one, especially for teenagers and adults. So I'd love if you can tell us a little bit more about that, and specifically about how you assess students' language level and how you help them increase their speaking proficiency.
Okay, thank you very much. This happens during the first session, where I have to assess them because I need to know where to start from and to establish where we're going together with the students. So before I start, I define two main categories. I would say the first one is a category where a student is able to talk about himself, talk about his environment, be able to use the present tense, past tense, and the near future in a very easy way, and be able to give a very clear and short message to the person he's talking to. The second group, we say, is a group where someone is able to give his opinion, is able to defend his opinion and participate in debates. So this person is able to speak clearly and give a clear and not confusing message. The grammar is supposed to be somehow or almost perfect at this level. So now how do I do this? During the first session, when I'm assessing them, I do it in a simple dialogue with the candidates. We ask a very easy question about the person, about his interests, his hobbies, his daily activities, what he did last holidays or his projects. Then I see if everything is okay. I say, okay, this person belongs to the first category. If not, I have to sit down with him and I give a feedback so that we can plan for the next step to do together. So for the second level I made for myself, where someone is able to give an opinion or to defend his opinion in a debate. I introduce just a topic according to what I see on profile, because when I start classes, NaTakallam send us the profile of the student, they send us the expectations for the students. So I do everything following that way. So with this topic, we discuss a little bit, and while I'm listening to that person, I write down and identify what this person is, what this person needs to improve. Then after this, I give a feedback. Then we plan together about the following the next steps. Um, the grammatical skills he needs to improve, the vocabulary needs to improve. But how we do this? We do this during the following sessions, but we use documents. It can be a written document, can be an oral document, an audio, and this depends on what the student asks in his profile. Some of them wanted to listen and speak, others want to read and be able to write or speak. So the plan we do together is according to the expectation of any student from what we read on the profile given by NaTakallam and by the students. Then that is how I can assess according to what I see. And my assessment is not only for the first time, and every day we do classes, I always assess, I always find things to improve. Then we always plan for the next session. This is how we go and we improve with the students, and everything is according to his expectations and also mine, because sometimes I see this needs to be improved and I suggest, then we go together. Thank you.
Thank you. And building off what Benny was sharing, this profile that the CPs get before meeting the student comes from either something the student fills out themselves, if they're an independent student, or if that's what the teacher or professor wants, or can come also directly from this teacher or the professor. So it works a little bit differently depending on if it's an independent student who's just signing up for sessions on her own and can pick what she wants to focus on, versus if it's a student that's part of a class and the teacher or the professor also gets to help direct what the session should cover. If there's specific vocabulary that you're working on with students that you want to be reinforced in the session, if there's specific grammar, if there's an article that you're reading, it could be really customized to what's happening in class. Or if you just want the students to practice speaking and you tell them whatever you want to talk about, if it's sports, if it's food, find a topic that you're excited about and just use the time to speak. I see we do have some questions coming in, which is great. We're going to get to more of them soon, and feel free to keep sending them in. But I want to talk about our third type of program that we're offering at this time, which is our newest type of program, and in a specific response to the current situation with COVID and school closures. So we know that for some schools, live video conferences are not an option because of scheduling, because of technology access, because of a million reasons. We get it, it's really hard. So we've developed a new offering that's asynchronous, which means it's not synchronous, so not happening at the same time. But it's a pre-recorded video option, is a less fancy way to say that. So the teachers can have students write questions, the teacher collects them, sends them to the CP. They can be written questions, they could be video questions, they could be audio questions, whatever works. The CP records a video with answers, uploads it to a private link to share with the students, and the students can watch it anytime over the course of the week before it's deleted. This, again, could be a one-time thing, or it could still be a conversation back and forth. They get the video, the students watch the video, hopefully it sparks new questions for them, and so they write new questions, and then can get a new video the following week. And Varti, you've actually been really leading the way with this pilot for us. You've done our first some of our first pre-recorded sessions the past couple weeks. So thank you so much for that. And I'd love if you could share, I know you've also done lots of group sessions and one-on-one sessions, which is not to say that Varti only does the pre-recorded sessions, but we'd love if you could tell us a bit more about the process of doing the pre-recorded sessions. How did you work with the teachers? And what do you think students were able to learn from it, especially in the language session that wasn't live? Thanks.
As Hannah said, or the others also talked about all types of NaTakallam programs we have recently, and because of this corona situation, many schools are working also remotely. So they are not able to have all the students in one place to see me speaking with them directly, or do the lesson, or even learning Arabic few words or expressions, or even talking about subject they want to talk about. Most of the schools, they work on historical background, culture comparisons, or even learning language. They talk with NaTakallam. Also, I think Qatar Foundation is sponsoring some of them. So they talk with us and specify with us what subject they want us to talk about. Recently, the things that and also always, which I do with all CPs and schools, we specify a time that we talk with, being on Zoom or Skype or whatever, with the teacher, and see for what they are going to use that session. If it is only for learning a language, or it's a historical or refugee voice, they would like to know more about us. According to that, we specify the way. Like, I ask them if they have specific questions to ask me. But in order to have it a bit more fun, because they are kids, so they would like to have something in there for them too there. So I asked them about their hobbies, like what hobbies they have, what hobbies they like to do. So they write me a letter with those hobbies and asking me the questions that they want to know about. I gather those and I again speak with the teacher, and in cooperation with them, we decide on a way. Recently, because of this online and remote situation, that the students are at their houses, and even the schools are not able to specify or plan accurately nowadays. It's like emergency case, you don't know what's going on. Some schools have internet, some others not. We started to record some videos. I have also prepared sometimes slides. In those slides, I do some expressions, like I say, hello, marhaba in Arabic. I am Varti, so I introduce myself, and I give a small amount of time so the students also will have a time to practice saying it. Like I say to them, okay, let's now do it, even if it was a video, like a sort of interactive way. And I record this thing. I used Zoom. I used also some other portals like Vimeo or Vismo, other presentation preparation. There are many which are free. Vimeo is not free, it's for 1 month only free. You can use it, I guess. I tried it. I recorded first. I had to prepare my slides, what I'm going to talk about first, and also I had to prepare myself as a voice. Like, you need a good microphone sometimes, and you have to listen and try it again and again, the video, if my sound is good there or not. And by that, after it is okay, I put it online, and I put also a password, because sometimes I don't want everybody to know it. So it's secure. In some portals, there are security, so you can send the password to those people who do you want to tell them that they can watch. And I tried it also with other NaTakallam, the staff, and they also saw if it is working or not. I asked some people's advice, and it was okay. Now that school is trying to make it in one of their history lessons. They want to watch it during history lesson, because it's about life of kids, like according to the age of the students, of course, and what the teacher wants me to talk about. We prepare those things, and we use certain tools, and we put them online, so the student and the school will get use of it. That is all from my side. If you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you, Varti. And we do have a bunch of questions coming in, so we're gonna start to answer some of them. So there's a couple questions that have come in around language standards, and specifically if the CPs are trained in ACTFL proficiency guidelines or other language guidelines. So I'll speak a little bit about this, and then I'll invite if any of our panelists have more to add, please do. So I'll back up and start a little bit with our sort of our hiring and training process. So to become a conversation partner is a job that people apply for and are interviewed. All of our conversation partners are professionals. Some of them were teachers, as you heard from a few who shared their backgrounds. Some of them were teachers in their home countries and are still teaching in their new countries. Some, because of displacement, were no longer able to work as teachers. Some worked in other professions. We have dental hygienists and engineers and graphic designers and a range of different professions who had an interest and a personality that was suited well to teaching. So they applied, they were interviewed, they do a test session, and then they go in to first working in our individual program for adult learners who sign up as independent individuals. As conversation partners, you know, with somebody like me who studied Arabic in university and doesn't speak it as much now, and I want to just brush up. And then the conversation partners who have been doing that for a while and are getting really strong feedback and are really good at it, we invite them to join a training specifically for the university and K-12 school program. Sometimes for both, sometimes for one or the other, sort of depending on both their availability and just what best suits their skills and interests. So we have a training that talks about how to work with professors and teachers and in schools and universities. We don't follow specific proficiency guidelines from ACTFL or any other language guideline setter, because we're really trying to support whatever the teachers are doing, and different teachers and different professors are following different curriculum and different guidelines. And so for us, we've made a strategic decision to train the conversation partners to be really flexible and support what it is you're learning or you're teaching. And for example, we do have some conversation partners who've worked with professors that are using ACTFL OPI standards, and if those are shared with the conversation partners, they're happy to adapt them and incorporate them into the lesson. But that's not something that we train them on specifically. And so I'll add one more question that's coming in. A few people are sort of asking like what a sample lesson looks like. So maybe if any of our panelists wants to talk a little bit either about language proficiency standards and or sharing a sample lesson. Would one of you like to take that?
I would love to, if that's okay. So as Hannah has said, we may not specifically have one guideline in order to determine the level of the student, but for example, I almost graduated from modern languages, so I understand the level each student should have. On my country, it goes from A to C2, meaning the most distinguished level. Based on that, as they have previously mentioned, each student and each teacher is different. So to follow only one guide would be a little bit strict, and it requires some flexibility. As to how a lesson would look like, before the COVID-19, it would be in front of the whole class, and I would be in a screen, and then we would have a simple conversation, something that the teacher wants to see. For example, today we were going to have a cultural exchange in regards to like economy, in regards to music, and then with that, of course, full-on Spanish, or unless maybe a little bit of English if it's required. For example, let's say that today we're going to have an overview on how the cultural difference and the impact of music has in Latin America versus North America. what is the point of this, so that the students have a conversation and they can practice things that they like to hear and things that may not that mean surprising, like, oh, the music there means this, the music there means that. That way, we also have a flexibility in the sense of like they have the freedom of speech and the freedom of saying what they want, but in a very guided way. It's not something that is just, oh, anything out of the wind. It's completely structured, but in a flexible way that everyone can practice. And I also make sure that, and I'm sure that everyone else does, that everyone has a time to speak. So it's not like there's always going to be one student who doesn't speak. No, I want everyone to have a time to practice anything that the material is required. If it's something like preterite, if it's something like infinitive, if it's just a syllable, if it's vocabulary, everything like that. It depends on what the teacher itself is looking. So for example, if, as I said before, if I have a meeting with the teacher and I know that the teacher is, for example, trying to practice tenses, if it's a low grade, talking about this is K-12, first grade, second grade, and anything besides, based on the level of the kids and then their age and everything, we would have a conversation on what they know. I have students from Hawaii, I have a student from Britain, from the UK, losing my voice a little. And we practice that. And it's really interesting to see how the students start to get interested when they see, oh, it's not just A, B, C, D, F, and G. It's actually a conversation on things that I find interesting, and that the teacher has a way to practice anything and everything that she wants in a way that I support her. It's not that I take over for her, I help her develop everything that she wants to do. That is my experience. If someone else would like to say something about that.
Thanks, Pavel. Anybody else want to add to that with examples of how this actually looks like in a session?
Can I? May I?
Please.
Sorry. Sometimes we have K-12 kids of a school or even camp schools. One of my experiences was in summer school camp, and there were kids like 4 years old, 5 years old, like 3 or 4 of them. And it was fun because the kids are like moving a lot. And when you sit down like this and start to talk with them, they will not interact with you. So you have to like say, okay, today the story is about Suk something, Hamidiyeh. I show them few photos, being like photo or on screen with slides, and we can do that also with it, something related to directions, how they will find their ways in such places. So to do those directions, we can do even by going up, doing some movements, because those are kids and they would like to move also. So interaction through Zoom or these technologies, sometimes it's difficult, especially for kids. So you have to know where the kid is. You are losing the attention, you have to draw them back. And you have to put always things that they like in it to draw them back to you. That is the only way to motivate them to stay and come again and like you and yes, miss, and we want to do this. This is from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more great questions. So one that I'll answer, which is asking about working with younger students, minors, and privacy and parental consent, which is a very important question. So thank you for asking. So the way we worked previously in schools was that the sessions all took place in the school building with the teacher present as a full classroom. And so it was generally covered by the school policy of the teacher being able to bring in a guest speaker into the class and still having supervision of an employee of the school. Of course, things are different now when students are connecting from home, and especially now that we have started offering the one-to-one connections for high school students. So we've been working so far with our pilot high school teaching partners to make sure that they get the parental consent that they need for their students to have these connections with a CP who's not an employee of the school district. And through those pilots that we've been having the past couple weeks, we're now developing also our own permission slip form so that teachers can share that easily with parents and get parental permission for their students to participate. So that's something we're definitely thinking about. If you or your school has your own form that you'd rather use, of course, you can use that, but we're now developing one so that we'll have a template to share. And then another really great question that came in is looking for recommendations for how students can reflect meaningfully on these remote conversations, since students won't be able to debrief and discuss together in class. So I have a couple ideas, and then also, again, I'd love if any of the CPs want to add. I think one way is just to ask students to write a short paragraph reflection that they can either share back with the teacher or with other students in the class as well, what they've learned, especially if it's in a language class, trying to write in the language about what they've learned from the conversation partner. I think that works well for group sessions. I think also if you are having your students all do one-on-one sessions, they will most likely not all have the same conversation partner because of scheduling and logistics. So there'll be at least 2 or 3 conversation partners assigned to your students. So it could be a really great way to then pair up students who are working with different conversation partners and ask them to share a bit about what they've learned from their conversation partners who have very different experiences. For example, Varti and Asala are both Syrian, but Varti is living in Armenia, Asala is living in Italy, and was in Lebanon before then. There's a lot of differences, and we really want to encourage students to be learning about the wide range of what it means to be displaced. And so to be able to share that with their peers, what they learned from their conversation partner, would be another really great way for them to share that learning and continue reflecting. I'm going to open it back up for any of the CPs. If you have other ideas that you've seen or that you've suggested to the teachers and students you work with about ways to help them do reflection since they're not able to meet together in class.
Sorry. Yeah, again. There are certain schools, they have a club or library on their sites. I noticed that from some of the schools I worked with. So they can share their ideas there. Even they can ask the students to write things that can be like when we were using in old times at schools, writing something to put on the wall of the school so everybody will read it. So that can be a way, not only writing to each other, also emails and so on. Also, they can put something and put it on the portal or the page of the school, or even have a newsletter for the school itself saying that this month we did this, like a reflection of it. Like our schools on this grade, 10th grade, we discussed this subject with one of the CPs of NaTakallam, and we had these questions with them, etc., and having some photos or not, just like writing, and they can share it with all the schools, the school students with it. This is one of the ideas. Some schools, or nowadays online, we can see on Facebook they are putting some videos, but if it is not, of course, not secure, not private, you can do it even between the students themselves. Like they can record a small thing and send it to the teacher, if that is allowed from your school, because I don't know the privacies or the systems of your schools too.
That's a great idea. And another attendee also wrote in suggesting blogs, video recordings as a reflection tool. Great. Another question. This question is not specific to language learning, but is, I think, really relevant for working with NaTakallam, is when you're having conversations with refugees or with displaced people, what are some do's and don'ts? What's okay to ask and what's not okay to ask? Any of you want to answer this? And it might be different for all of you, and that's okay too.
For me, hi again. For me, I tend to be as open as possible. I like to let the students understand the difference of what's going on, and also have an opportunity to have an open discussion. But my only rule is whatever the teacher finds is not acceptable. Anything that they think would be a little too complicated, or not complicated, but a little bit too grim or too, let's say, blunt, I would honestly not go there. But if a student has some question that want to say about my experience, about where I come from, for example, I'm from Venezuela, my experiences there, my experiences here, what differences between cultures, I technically don't really have any no's. I open and I welcome all questions so that we can have a more honest conversation and the practice goes a lot better because they don't have any questions left or any regrets of not asking anything that they may be interested in.
And Ursula, you wanted to add? Yeah.
So in general, especially when we have kids in classroom, they want to ask more about the culture, about food, music, something like this. And also they ask about our personal life. For me, no problem. I answer. I am open, and I can answer for any question. Some of teachers, they said, please don't speak about political or religion or something like this subject. It's clear because they are small or they are young. Also for the students who in high school also, for me, no problem. But always they ask me about when you are in Italy, you are alone, who came with you, how you are, did you arrive to Italy, and another question. So for me, it's no problem. They can ask anything.
And I'll add to this also. When someone signs up, whether they're signing up as an individual, and we're going to talk about signups and scholarships before we finish in 8 minutes. But when someone signs up as an individual, or if you sign up for your class, you fill out a form where we ask some questions about what you're looking for, both logistics of what time of day and what days of the week and how many sessions, but also more content. What are you interested in politics? Are you interested in culture? Are you interested in history? And so we collect that information and we use that to pair you or your students with a conversation partner. And we have these 4 wonderful conversation partners. We also have a lot of others. We have some who really like to talk about politics, and we have some who do not feel comfortable talking about politics. So depending on what the request is, we use that information to try to make a good match. So that if we have a school that doesn't want to talk about politics, we give them somebody who is happy to not talk about politics. And if we have a school that really wants to get into politics and history and human rights, we know who to send them. So again, I think it all sort of ties back even, to the same things we've been talking about before, that these programs are really designed to support what it is you're already working on in class. If it's specific language goals, if it's specific history or culture about the region of the world, if it's specific to migration or not, we collect that information and use it to pair you with somebody who will be able to speak to the topics that you're most interested in. Let's take one last question and then I'll use no, I think we have to actually just go into sign up process and scholarship because I want to respect everyone's time. So I'm going to quickly talk about that and then I'm going to give 30 seconds to each of our panelists if they want to say any final words. But so quickly, if you're interested in signing up, which we hope you very much are, we are going to follow up with an email either later today or maybe tomorrow, bear with us, that will have very detailed information for how to register, whether you're a K-12 school, a university, or an individual, no matter what language you're interested in. We'll send you to the right forms that will ask you for a bunch of information and that we take back with us to then pair you and get you started. We generally ask for 2 weeks between when you sign up and when you want to start sessions, just depending on how busy we are. And we're doing, it's not an Uber that's just going to match you with the closest driver. We're thinking about it really carefully. And so wanting to make human matches. So we sometimes can fast track it, but if you can give us advance warning, that really helps. There was a question about scholarship funds, which I also wanted to talk about. There is a cost associated with all of our programs. It ranges a bit depending on if it's for one-to-one sessions, which are generally between 15 to 20 US dollars an hour for a session, depending on the level of preparation work required by the CPs. If it's integrating with a class that you're already teaching, we charge on the higher end because we're asking the CPs to put in more time. The full classroom sessions are between $150 and $225 a session, depending on how many. If you're doing more, we can give bulk discounts. Thanks to our amazing partnership with QFI, also co-hosting this webinar, we do have really generous scholarship funds available for K-12 schools that are doing programs with our CPs from the Arab world, whether that's in Arabic or in English, because that aligns with QFI's mission about bringing Arabic and Arab culture to the world. If you teach Spanish or French or work in a university, we're sorry you aren't eligible for the QFI funding, but if you fill out the registration form with more details, we can give you a specific price quote based on the number and type of sessions you're looking for. And we do have some financial assistance that we can offer for Spanish and French programs at the K-12 level. Unfortunately, nothing for university at this time, but it is something we're actively seeking. So keep an eye out in your email. We're going to send all of that information, registration, webinar coming up with QFI in 2 weeks on May 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 hour later than today, which is specifically on life displaced. So looking more at the global issues, refugee issues aspect of our work. We'll also have conversation partner panelists who are really wonderful, Hadia, Renoir, and Marianella, who are from Syria and Venezuela. So if you're interested, or if you have colleagues who teach social studies or political science or anything like that, we'll send that info out in the follow-up as well, and we'd love if you could share it. So in the 2 minutes we have left, oh, and there's registration information up on your screen as well. I'd love to just give each of our panelists 20 seconds for any final reflections that you'd like to share to close us out on. Let's start with Varti. We'll go reverse alphabetical order.
Okay, I'm happy that I was talking here today. Thank you for NaTakallam and also the Qatari Foundation for this webinar. Everything has a first time. So 4 years ago, it was my first time to start talking and teaching online. So it's not something that you are afraid of. You have to, if you have to do it, you have to do it. And you can have many resources online which are free that can help you to develop how you are going to put the curriculum and so on. So just like Nike said, just do it. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And Pavel, 20 seconds. We're going to end on time.
Okay, thank you so much for having me here. It's honestly been an honor. Thank you for anyone who attended this. And as for anyone, I'm just grateful for my job and grateful for NaTakallam. It has changed my life, and I love every single one of my students. And to those who are watching, you know what you need to practice.
Thank you. Benny.
Sorry. What can I say? So just saying thank you for having me here. And I'm very happy for this opportunity to be able to meet many people from very far, from different cultures, and to share mine as well. And for learning many new things, including teaching online. I've been teaching one-on-one, but not online. This is a new thing. And I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, what I'm learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last but not least, Asara.
Also, in the end, I want to say thank you for all. I'm happy to be here with you this evening, and it's very important now in this situation everywhere to work online. Everything now online, or our life is online. So teaching online is very important, especially in this situation. Thank you all, and have a nice time.
Thank you. A big round of applause for all of our panelists and our attendees, and QFI for co-hosting this. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone stays safe and stays healthy. Have a wonderful rest of your day.